Y pasamos ya.
We have time. And now we're going to listen to the last speech. We have Enrique Moliner, is working in the Design Engineering Group at the Jaume I University in Castellón, and is going to talk about the gvSIG application for an assessment study of the environmental impact of the waste transport. Yes, I would like to talk about one of the gvSIG use. It's an example when studying the impact on the environment of waste transport in Castellón region. So we'll start with a brief introduction, then we will see the objective of the study, the methodology that we have used, the problems that we have faced, and then we will see the results and the conclusion of that study. So on this map, you see the different facilities for waste treatment and the discharge and the majority of those facilities have been closed already. So this is why we had only one facility for waste treatment, but its capacity was not sufficient enough to cover the amount of waste of the region. So the waste from some municipalities had to be sent to Alicante with a higher cost for this transport and a higher impact on the environment. Some cities in the north of the province of Castellón were not ready or had not enough financial resources to pay for that transport, so they were dumping their waste in illegal landfill in the province of Castellón. You see them here on the map. So to send that waste to illegal landfills obviously was a big problem, because those landfills had no control measures to avoid the pollution of subsoil, of water, or atmospheric pollution. They were not only buried, they were scattered, and the impact on the landscape or on the biodiversity was very high. During the negotiation between the cities and the public administration, well, unfortunately, they didn't come to an agreement on where to locate those landfills. You know that in general the society is opposed to those landfills, and we must also say that there was a study that indicated where those landfills should be located. For example, in the northern area, they decided that the landfill should be located there in Severa del Maestre with a landfill and a waste treatment facility. That study was made in 2010, and very recently I have read that finally they have opened that facility and it is fully operating. So when I'm giving you the information on those slides, you must know that this information is a 2010 information. So this facility will serve the city from the northern part of the province. Then we have another one for the central area. And in the southern area, well, according to the plan, they wanted to open a treatment plant in the Val d'Uixó region. So once all the facilities built, well, we would have that distribution, one facility for every area. So the objective was to assess the impact of the waste transport in the Castellón province. We are using two indicators. First, the CO2 emission, the carbon footprint and also the ecologic footprint. So we have calculated the surface of Mediterranean woods that are needed to absorb the CO2 emission. We have done the analysis for the present and future situation to compare the two scenarios and to see the new emissions that are produced because of the delay in the construction of those plant facilities. The methodology that we have used for this study is a four-step methodology. First, we are collecting the information about the present and future scenarios. Second step, we are calculating the distances covered by the waste transport vehicles. We are using gvSIG to calculate those distances. Once we know the distances, we are calculating the carbon footprint and ecologic footprint. And finally, we are calculating the impact on the environment. So the first step is the collecting of the information. So we wanted to know the volume of waste generating in each and every municipality. So we have consulted a study that we did. It was called a Waste Map in Castellon province, in order to know the different waste categories, solid and home waste that we are throwing in the bin or in the containers in front of our home. We also needed to know where those waste were transported, what were the existing and future facilities for the waste treatment or the existing landfill. So we consulted that second study for the present situation and for the future situation. There are different plans and different studies that have been made. Then we have analyze a logistic scenario for the waste transport. The waste collecting is done daily in all the municipalities with two vehicles, one for the waste collecting and another one to transport those waste to the waste treatment or to the landfill according to every case. And we have also a third vehicle loading the waste to the central, to the headquarters where the waste would be treated. According to the generation of waste per municipality and according to the load capacity of every vehicle, we have been able to decide the number of vehicles needed for the municipalities. So we have decided to have a shared collecting process between different municipalities. A vehicle was visiting different municipalities before going to the transfer center or to the landfill. And those municipalities were assigned the relative load of the vehicle assigned to those municipalities. Once aware of that scenario, we have calculated the distances covered by those vehicles. And this is when we have seen that we needed a GIS tool. We have made some research and we discovered that gvSIG could offer us a solution to our problem. The network extension helped us to calculate the optimum route. We had the origin, the municipalities, with some intermediary stops, other cities, if we were talking about shared collecting process, and the waste treatment plan at the end, the destination. We included that data in gvSIG cartography, and we had also different available routes. This is why we wanted to calculate the best route possible, how we could go from the origin to the final destination in less time. So we used a map prepared to work with that tool, with this network analysis. We had all the parameters of each and every road, but we needed another field where to define the cost given by the speed, by the distance. So we classified the different roads under, well, different parameters, and we assign a speed for these vehicles according to each type of roads. We have identified the best route for each municipality. We've calculated the distances associated to the different roads to go back and forth between the origin and the destination for every type of vehicle. And we didn't calculate it, well, the roads that the vehicles were using inside the municipality. We were only calculated the distance from one municipality to another, from one municipality to the destination. So we were not calculating, well, those small distances, those small urban cities, well, inside, well, the cities that we were studying. From those data that we obtained with the first layers, we determined which distances were needed for vehicle type 1 or vehicle type 2. Thanks to those distances, we assigned them a ratio for fuel consumption, 0.25 liters per kilometer or 0.35 liter per kilometer according to the size of the truck, and we were able to define the fuel consumption per year per city. We were also able to calculate the CO2 footprint derived from that transport for each municipality, and then we have been able to calculate the absorption of CO2 per every Mediterranean woods, per hectares of Mediterranean wood per year. And this is how we have calculated the ecologic footprint. And that surface of woods that we need to absorb CO2 would be divided by the wood surface available in each municipality. We obtained that data from the land cover study. So we got an indicator telling us which percentage of the wood surface of a given municipality is needed to absorb the CO2 emission of the waste transport. Once analyzed those data, we compared the present and future situation and what would be the impact with or without new facilities. Now we're going to see the result. So you see the present scenario that I showed you before. On one hand, we have the northern area of the province with 26 municipalities. Right now, they are sending their waste to landfills in Girona, in another province, and to uncontrolled landfill. In the second one, they had their waste treatment well covered, and they have increased the capacity of the plant to absorb zone 4 and 5 waste. And in the southern part, well, they had to send their waste to another province in Alicante, in Vienna. Here we see the best roads that have been calculated through gvSIG. We have the direct roads between the municipality and the waste treatment facilities. So you see also the transport between the different provinces from Castellón to Alicante, more than 443,000 tons to Vienna, covering 329 kilometers back and forth. We also have 9,000 tons that are sent to Girona landfill, covering more than 600 kilometers. And finally, up north, we have a series of municipalities using non-controlled landfill with 70,000 tons of waste that are not well managed because they don't have any waste treatment facility. Here we have another map with the yearly generation of waste. We see that they are mainly generated on the coast. Another map showing the CO2 emission per year because of the waste transport per municipality. We see one more time that the coast is presenting the highest value. They have more emission, more transport. But if we have a look at the relative footprint, that is to say the CO2 emission per ton of waste transported, we see now that the highest level of pollution are found in the northern and southern area, that is to say those that are transporting their waste outside the province. In Castellón, the capital, and in Valducho, we see that the footprint is very high. And in Valducho, for example, they are generating 13,000 tons. In Castellón, 72,000. But we have more emission in Valducho than in Castellón because Castellón is sending its waste nearby, while Valducho is sending it in Alicante. So we see that Valducho, because they are transporting tons of waste, they are creating 20.75 kilos of CO2 compared to 3.57 kilos from Castellón. So you see, we have a very different situation from one municipality to another. Now we have the different results for each area. We see that the CO2 emission, if we are not taking into account the municipality sending their waste to non-controlled landfill, where we see the total emissions amount to 2,100 tons of CO2 per year. We need 500 hectares of Mediterranean wood to absorb those emissions. Future scenario now, Zone 1 has already a waste treatment in El Maestre. At Zone 2, we have 4 and 5, they already had the waste treatment facilities. Nothing is changing. And in Zone 3, we would have a new waste treatment plant. We are recalculating, well, all the data. No more transport outside the province. And the municipality from the north that were doing this non-control discharge, well, have no need to do it, so no more pollution of the atmosphere, of the landscape, of the soil, or of the aquifers. Here we see the generation of waste, the same generation as at present, because we cannot imagine an increase of waste for the future. We see that the carbon footprint is still higher on the coast, and the relative CO2 footprint per ton of transported waste are distributed differently. We have reduced the figures, but the highest volume are found inside the province, avoiding the coast. If we compare again Castellón with Valducho, you see that the footprint is much more balanced from, if we compare from one city to another. You have the figures on the screen. You see that we have in Valducho, we have reduced it to 2.92 kilos of CO2. So you see that it's much more balanced. And now if we go to the main table to see the amount of emissions without taking into account non-controlled landfill have been reduced drastically. And we only need 324 hectares of Mediterranean wood to absorb those emissions. If we compare both scenarios, we see that If you compare the relative carbon footprint, we see that with these new facilities in Zone 1, we are reducing emission by 54%. This facility is already existing. It's fully operating right now. And we still need to install the second facility in the south of the province to reduce by 72% CO2 emissions. It would represent a reduction by 43% of CO2 emission due to waste transport. While we are not installing those facilities, we are producing 900,000 tons of CO2, and this is what we should try to avoid if we are not opening those new facilities. Well, each year we are issuing 700 tons of CO2, so this is why we should try to speed up the construction of those facilities in order to avoid those emissions. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I will be very pleased to answer them. Thank you very much.
Bueno, felicitar a Enrique.
Thank you very much, Enrique, for this fantastic work that you've been doing. Well, we will open an question and answer session. Raise your hand if you have a question. I have one for Enrique and for Jose. Your study is quite similar. You've been talking about Castellon. My family is from Nules, and I'm very surprised of the numbers, the figures that you have given. Are you going to repeat that study in coming years? So it's a study that we have presented during a congress, and your organization called us because they wanted us to present the result here. So it's something that we thought was a closed study, but with your invitation, we thought that we might reopen the project and we might study, well, or make a new study or an extension to our study and study the different waste categories. We wanted to try to do a new study with new indicators telling us, well, if our situation is sustainable in Castellon. In my case, we are distributing fixed and mobile sensors with a direct internet connection to register, well, the situation at night, year long, to see what is the energy consumption during the summer, during the winter, and in different Spanish areas, and cross-matching it with the data that we receive from the spatial agency. If you visit our web, you will see a comparison between 2011-2012 data in different areas in Spain. Thank you very much. Any question? There is a question.
Me había prometido no decirlo este año, pero como
I promised that I would not say this year, but I have a question about Macintosh. You mentioned that you're going to use gvSIG 2.0, and why doesn't this run on Mac? That was on one of the slide on legacy attributes. Batevic only works on OLPC, which is an Intel architecture. Educa projects run on gvSIG. If Educa will be easily used in any system that supports gvSIG. I hope you realize that is important. Yes, and part of the effort to have gvSIG be viewed correctly in numerous devices requires harder work regarding iOS. Most of us using gvSIG have use Linux or Windows, and we've realized that we need to adapt to Macintosh. Just a little bit we've done, but there's still room for improvement. That is indeed true. Mac is important, but maybe somebody should have to pay for this kind of development, or somebody would have to contribute with labor. More questions? Good afternoon. Jose, your project is excellent. I wonder, I don't know the results you have obtained, and how can this be applied to the real lux that Regis Street. Maybe we can use the data you have to produce a luminic map and see if the different rules and regulations are being observed. We have a luximeter, and we take the SQM around, and we have measurements. We have studies like Desidex 08 that we are doing again, and we're measuring the reflection of light on the ground and the amount of light that is dissipated and scattered. So we are working on that to be able to have a final measurements captured by sensors and satellites. The Ministry of Industry is making the lighting system adapt to the number of inhabitants and match luminic pollution and how this affects the final bill. INTA produced a study in 08 using spectrometers, and this can be done again to match lamps and the real light flow that they cast. Have you tried with flights that require no crew? Well, we've used different possibilities. We've made measurements using hot air balloons and we're thinking about night flights. But in Spain, we can't do night flights unless this is for a military purpose, for a defense purpose. So we can use INTA, this organization. I think the Barcelona Cartographic Institute wishes to study, I think it's called the thermal footprint. So we have different possibilities, and we've used airplanes with crew. We're thinking about doing this with unmanned flights. I have a question for Álvaro. Your project is wonderful. I'm wondering, do you think this project can be replicated so that not only the administration can benefit from it, but everybody can make the most of it? Well, right now we are disseminating this project, and I mentioned the countries that are starting to use this. We're still at the beginning, so to speak, of the process, and these things take time. The International Cartography Association is working to disseminate this, to present this to United Nations. So the implementation of this project across the globe will take a little bit of time. We conducted a pilot project. We showed this project to the Spanish ministry, but there wasn't very good feedback. Any further question? I have a question for Shane. I enjoy very much the work you do. I have enjoyed listening to what you do. Is it easy or difficult to explain what proprietary and open software is, the differences between both? I am going to try and speak in Spanish. Yes, I tend to mention this. People don't understand what open source free software is, because they might use AccuGlobe and then realize they have to pay. Open source is often free, not always, and I always have to explain the difference between explain what free means when we talk about free software or open source. I would like to close the session with a reflection on the project Educa. It's great to have a software that can be used for education purposes, but maybe people should be able to use more cartography. Have you tried to include more cartographic data? Well, fortunately, nowadays there is increasingly more open source cartography. The engineering department at the Montevideo University has produced cartography. It had too much information, though, for school students, but they are producing constantly maps for students to use. Well, I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists for their excellent presentations. Let us give the floor over to Gabriel Carrion for the official closing of the conference.
Cuando empiezan las jornadas,
opening ceremonies are really great because people are so enthusiastic, whereas closing ceremonies tend to be boring. People can't wait to leave. But some of the organizers said you should try to give a good speech. In opening ceremonies, partners and sponsors are acknowledged. In closing ceremonies, it's all about thanking those who have made this conference possible. In gvSIG, we are multitaskers, so we do absolutely everything. I would like to say that the conference organizers are great guys, and I love to work with them daily. Sometimes one thinks that in an ethicless world we should pay more attention to aesthetics. But us in gvSIG think just the opposite. We're into ethics more than aesthetics. We're into solidarity, generosity, sharing, collaboration. And giving the dominant technocracy, apparently technocrats, will solve all the problems in the world. But I like to think that gvSIG and open source software is not an end in itself. They're umbrellas for many, many useful tools. Software is nothing but a tool. We frequently talk about knowledge, and that knowledge should be shared. Yes, but to what aim? Sometimes it seems that people are almost holding competitions to see who knows more. So I think that we should share knowledge, but to a clear aim, to improve things, to change the world. And us in gvSIG love getting into trouble. And this crisis that is nothing but a crime. It's really a fraud. And we know that we need to do things, because whatever we do now in the present will determine the future. And we always like to see gvSIG like a road that needs be built using shared values and projects to go beyond individualisms, to go beyond egos. We want all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to help build, to create. This is a path that we are all going down together. I hope to see you in the next edition. Thank you.